I've always been kind of slow to react. And I think that that's a good thing in those situations to where I'm going to pause and try to evaluate where is this coming from. And I think knowing that only people that have something broken within themselves attack others. So if somebody is trying to make you feel bad about yourself, that's not on you. I think some of that is understanding that when you are the receiver of those attitudes and those things, is that you almost have to have sympathy for those people. And I think that allows you to not react as much as like you're feeling attacked, as more of a, oh, if we knew what was going on with you.
I'm Dr. Charlie Hornis, highly anxious people pleaser turned master certified professional life coach. Learning to manage my brain was so life-changing for me that I got certified so that I could teach these incredible evidence-based practices to you. Are you ready for massive change? Let's go. I am so excited to bring on my incredible guest. I cannot wait for you to meet her. This is our favorite command chief in the Air Force, retired Chief Casey. And then I know you're going to reprimand me and call you Casey. So Casey, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. And now I'm just Casey, which is nice. I got my name back after 29 years of service. I am from Clovis, New Mexico, originally, which is a very small town in eastern New Mexico, like right on the Texas border, and smells like cattle poo all the time, and you don't get used to it. And there's about 30,000 people. It was also the home of Cannon Air Force Base, so a little bit familiar with military people from that. And my dad was a Marine, so as I am working at the taco box, getting paid $4.25 an hour, I remember there was a person that had been with them like maybe 3-4 years, and she got offered a position that was like a supervisor position. The thing that stuck with me was she said, I would love to take the position, the job, but I can't take the pay raise because I will have my benefits impacted and I need to feed my family. And that was the moment in my life when I said, what am I doing? I admire that she's trying to take care of her family. I'm just looking at that saying, is this the conversation I want to have, in 5 years? And I said, well, maybe I'll just join the Air Force. And so I went and I talked to the recruiter, and they said, well, what do you want to do? I like languages. And then they came back and said, it's going to be like 2 years for you to go through your school. And there's about a year-long wait. And so I said, well, what do you have that is quick? And they said, well, we have been trying really hard to get people into the maintenance career field, like specifically women into maintenance career fields. Aerospace ground equipment mechanic job, and it's open, and we can get you in pretty quick. And I'm like, okay, well, what do they do? And he's like, oh, well, it's not like real maintenance. It's like they change circuit cards and stuff. And I said, I can do that. And he lied, by the way. You don't change circuit cards. Well, you do, but you also change engines. And so I found that out later. So I joined the Air Force, went to tech school. I was learning wiring diagrams and schematics, and I was a little bit stressed because I think that was my first inclination that I might have stepped in something that was a little bit bigger than I thought. And I was like, oof, am I going to graduate? I've, always not had a problem with school, but that was hard. So I did end up graduating. So I'm from New Mexico, and they sent me to Fairbanks, Alaska, and it was cold. So I get to my first duty station, and I had this perception that, I should know what I'm doing and it's going to be fine. And I get picked up from the airport from my sponsor, but the whole way back to the base, she was telling me about how everyone was going to not talk to me because I was a female, or they would hate me because they find out you're married, like they won't want to have anything to do with you. And so I got really nervous, and so I show up, and I go to my first supervisor. Hi, I'm Casey. And, they're like, here's a heater. Go work on it. And here I am thinking, okay, I went through school. I went through 6 months of technical training. I should know what I'm doing. And I'm staring at it, but it's like drain the oil. And I go, where do I drain the oil? So I was a little bit lost and so afraid to even ask for help. Partially because of my own crap, where I was thinking that I had to know everything and I had to be good right away. And I think partially because of those perceptions that I had got by talking to my sponsor about how everyone was going to judge me. And, she was actually the only other female in the entire shop. It was like 100 dudes and me and Vicky. And nobody's going to mess with Vicky because she's 6'1". So luckily, one of the civilian workers there, I don't know if he felt sorry for me or what, but he took me under his wing and he started like teaching me how to do the job. It was a struggle. Once I proved that I knew what I was doing and I was a hard worker, it was a lot easier. But when I'd only been there maybe a month, I was walking into work, and I was walking across the shop floor and there was a row of lockers and I overhear my supervisor and he says, oh yeah, I ended up getting the girl. He said, she's either going to be pregnant and working in the office or she's going to be kicked out by Christmas. And it was like November. And I'm going, really? Like, you're my supervisor. You're the one that's supposed to guide me and teach me and be there for me, according to all the things that I had learned about the military. But, I was 19 years old and it just made me mad. And it made me sad, but it also lit a fire in me too. And I started working really hard to be good at my job. I took it seriously. I'm like, I am going to be the best person that you have. And I worked really hard to do that. And I scored above a 90% on my end of course exam. Once I became good at my craft and I became respected, they really treated me just like I was, a key member of the team. So it started out as a bad experience, ended up being a pretty good experience. And I stayed in, I was at the end of my tour. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to stay in Alaska. So I guess I'm going to go somewhere else. So I stayed in, went to Ellsworth in South Dakota for my next assignment. I think I had a good reputation as a hard worker, but I started seeing kind of like the bad side of my career field too. Still not a lot of women, maybe 5 or 6 of us there. And I was growing in my experience. So at that point, that's when they're supposed to start letting you do like a lot of the heavy maintenance and like the really tough, like troubleshooting. And I actually really enjoyed my job and they were, like not letting me do those things. And I was, again, pretty young and didn't really know how to react to that other than I was just started experiencing this complete dissatisfaction with my life and what I was doing and frustration. I saw an opportunity to be a military training instructor and I liked teaching people, kind of paying back that what was done for me, go be a drill sergeant. And so I became a military training instructor. So I came back and I moved to Lackland, San Antonio. And, wow, was that a difficult experience too. So here I am. Don't really have, a lot of experience leading, but all of a sudden here I'm 25 years old-ish, and they give me 60 young men and women and they say, you're responsible for teaching them how to be airmen. And, by the way, you're supposed to be perfect at it and you don't make mistakes because at the time that was the culture. And I go into this world where if you make a mistake, you will be, held up in front of others and spotlighted for your mistakes. You will be embarrassed in front of your flight of airmen you're supposed to be leading. You will be embarrassed in front of your teammates. And that was just like what that culture was at the time. Perfection is so dangerous because it makes people lie, cheat, and steal to look like they're perfect. And I started seeing that. And it was one of those things where I knew it was the wrong way, right? And I know it in my soul. And I'm not going to do this. And I didn't. Like, I'm not going to lead that way. Excellence is great. Striving is great. Trying to do your best is what we should do, but you're never going to be perfect. And it is just tragedy to see people try to be. I got a lot of comments that I was overconfident. I started hearing those things about myself when I became a military training instructor. Like, well, that's what we're supposed to be. You're just like telling me I have to be perfect, and then you're knocking me for being overconfident. I'm like, well, how does that work? So I started getting you're cocky, you're arrogant. How do you expect me to lead people if I'm not confident?
Let me just be very clear. You were a drill instructor. Is that the right title?
Yes.
Training.
Well, military training instructor is what the Air Force calls it, but most people know like drill sergeant.
That a drill sergeant. So that's like
basic training.
Yeah. How is it that you were called out for arrogance? Meanwhile, the entire stereotype of a drill sergeant is probably the most arrogant human alive. That doesn't connect. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, because the person that told me, so my trainer, right? And he said, hey, they're talking about you. They say that you're cocky, that you're too confident. You're a rookie. You're not supposed to be like that. I'm emulating your behavior because you're supposed to be the person I look at to learn how to do this job. And when I look at everybody else, that's how they're behaving. And so when I act like them, now I'm overly confident. And I was just like, I don't understand. It made me really angry. And I didn't accept that as a reason. You know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to treat our rookies like everyone else is treating our rookies. I am going to try to help them, because that's not our culture. The culture was just to like grind the new folks into the ground, the new instructors, just to make their life miserable, because, you know, that was what was done to the previous ones. I'm going to help. Am I going to be hard on my students? Yeah. I never was like demeaning and intentionally, trying to drag people down as what I got. And yeah, it's not fair, but that's what it was. And so you have choices, right? And you can react however you're going to react to it. And I think there's just something in my makeup that just, like, when I encounter something like that, I'm just like, well, I'm not going to do it your way. And it doesn't matter. Like, you're not going to destroy me because of a fault that's in you.
So that's, I think, a powerful teaching tool right there, especially for people that want to go into any kind of leadership. What would you say to anyone listening right now who is struggling with their own leadership, who has ugly things to say, who isn't treating them well? Because you could have left at any time. And had you done that, you wouldn't be where you are today. What is it that kept you like focused, going? How did you do that?
It was really hard. There was a lot of good that was going on too. So although I was in that situation, you know, I had the opportunity to teach and lead these young men and women to turn them into airmen. That was incredibly rewarding, because you look from someone on day one who is scared to look you in the eye, that stutters and is like just frightened. And then at the last day, you know, they're confident and they're proud, and their parents are like, how did this happen? I could look at what I was doing, and I knew that what I was doing was good, and the way I was doing it resonated with integrity with me. So I think it was, I had enough faith in my own integrity and my sense of self that I wasn't going to let somebody else destroy that. I mean, happiness is an inside job, right?
I want to highlight something that I just heard you say. We cannot change our outside circumstances. Mm-hmm. And so many of us believe that if we could just, you know, stop doing this, stop doing that. If only we said this in the moment, if only we blah, 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 blah. I didn't hear you do any of that. What I heard you do is shift your focus. What I heard you do is say, I can dwell on stuff I can't change, which is people's opinions, people's words, their beliefs about me. I heard you shift from, I'm not going to people please this person. I'm not going to change myself to make them better. And I heard you shift into service. There was no change. You didn't fix yourself. You didn't say the right thing. You didn't stop this, start that, blah, 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 like we all try to do. You just went, that's not the direction. I'm going to focus on helping, being of service, equipping people, and getting the joy out of that. That happiness is an inside job.
I think that is how I was able to get through that. And I went from that position into my last 2 years there. I taught academics, and that was such a positive experience. I was around such professional people, and it was positive and uplifting, and we all pushed each other. Like, I got my bachelor's degree. The dichotomy between that heavy competition and we're going to push you down, and then going into an environment where everyone's trying to lift each other up in the same environment too was so strange. I started to see what could be, if I kept my integrity and I kept my way of being. We all help each other, and we all are working towards, positive things. And I'm like, wow, I never worked in an environment like this. And why that matters is because when later on in my career, as I went into workplaces that were destroyed, I'm like, it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. This is something that's fixable. So I think I learned a lot from that. And I felt pretty strong in my leadership after going through that, almost like a crucible, right? I was not very sharp and shiny before I went to be an MTI. When I came out the other side, they said that only top 10% would be military training instructors. Like, they were the top 10% of the Air Force for professionalism. I always said that that's not exactly true. What was true is by the time you were done with your tour, you would be the top 10% or you wouldn't have made it there. But I ended up sharper for it. And that was a good thing. So I went back to my career field. They don't like it when you leave. They think you're a traitor. So I was very nervous going back to my career field. And I'm going back to maintenance. And I'll be in a kind of a leadership capacity, higher level supervisor. I've been gone for 5 years, and I don't exactly remember what I was doing. I was really nervous as I started figuring out that this section that they put me in was broken. It was broken. They'd had a leader there that would tell them, you're not smart enough to work on that piece of equipment. No, you can only do this. No, I can't trust you to do this. They tell you that when you give people responsibility, that you're building future leaders. That was illustrated so clearly in that, because it was just this whole bunch of followers that were scared to do anything. They were scared to do their job. For the first time, I said to my team, hey, guess what? We have to figure this out together, because I've been out of the career field for a long time. So I need your help and you need my help, and we're going to help each other. So I learned that being open and being vulnerable and being honest that I didn't know everything for the first time ever was not only okay, but I experienced the loyalty and respect from my team that I had only kind of seen elsewhere. And I was like, wow, who would have known that I could, vulnerability is not something that you usually think about when you think about maintenance. I don't know how to fix this. I said, well, I don't know either. Let's get in the book and let's figure it out, or we won't. What's going to happen, And so we did. And I think that was the beginning of me adding that to my leadership toolkit, that it's okay not to know everything, that it's okay to have to figure things out. And it's okay to tell people that you need their help. If there was one thing I wish I could have gone back earlier to baby Casey and told her when she first joined, is that it is absolutely a gift to help people and to receive gifts of helping people. It goes both ways. When you help somebody, you feel so good that you have helped them, no matter what it is. And when you receive help, you feel so good that you're supported. And I don't understand why so many people are afraid to ask for help and take away the opportunity for that person that helps them to receive that gift of feeling good about themselves and helping others. I wish I could have gone back and said, just say, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me figure this out?
Do you think that's part of our society here in the US? What is that about this individualism and not being able to ask for help? And it ties back to what you're talking about the perfectionism, this construct that we're all supposed to kind of like, goose step inside of. And I hear you blowing that up from the inside. Can you talk about that?
I think I was one of the people that suffered from that the most, right? I would not admit even to myself that I needed help. I wouldn't admit it. And there was so many situations to where if I would have just said, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here, but you do. Will you help me? I think I could have alleviated so much pain and so much stress from my life. And then, like I said, also it would have made other people's lives a little brighter too. And I'm not saying that you're helpless. Not at all. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't try and figure things out for yourself. Not at all. Because I get pretty angry about that kind of attitude too. It's one thing if like you need help and you need help, but it's another thing if you don't want to do it. And so that's why you're asking for help. So I think where you come from really matters. And I think a lot of that is we don't want to be perceived to be lazy or because they don't want to put forth the effort. So I think that's where a lot of the fear of asking comes from. If you're asking for help because you need help, ask for help. You have to be honest with yourself there too.
Would you take us down the road real quick of what would it look like if you had a quick mentoring session with that baby Casey? What is it that you would say now, who you are today, that maybe other people can listen to you talk about?
I would say you don't have to be perfect. I would say you don't have to know everything. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to show yourself as you are. You don't have to pretend to be anybody that you're not. You don't have to fit a mold. You know it's not going to be comfortable. You're not going to be happy in it. You don't have to put up a mask. If they don't like you as you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
And what about that physiological feeling that we get when we're facing aggression, conflict, when we're facing, for example, you are going to talk about like the big stuff as far as a lot of us out in our fields, when we face conflict, it's like dude next door, right? In the cubicle or whatever. But you had, military dudes coming at you. How do you deal with the emotional intelligence of calming that sort of automatic nervous system that happens when we're in these difficult situations with difficult people and difficult circumstances? Did you learn any tools or techniques in those moments that helped you along the way? Did you just have a disposition? It didn't bother you?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think, because I did absolutely react to that and feel that. I think it was more a matter of, I've always been kind of slow to react. And I think that that's a good thing in those situations to where, I'm going to pause and try to evaluate, like, where is this coming from? And I think knowing that only people that have something broken within themselves attack others is helpful. So if somebody is trying to make you feel bad about yourself, that's not on you. Something broken in them, if they're going to do that. Nobody that's a happy person in their life is going to say, I'm going to go out and make someone cry today. That's not what you do when you're in a good place in your life. You do that because there's something so wrong with you that you got to make other people feel bad so that you feel better. And the fact of the matter is you're not actually going to feel better, which is sad. So I think some of that is understanding that when you are the receiver of those attitudes and those things is that you almost have to have sympathy for those people. And I think that allows you to not react, as much as like you're feeling attacked, as more of a, oh, if we knew what was going on with you, we could make the world a better place, probably.
I've got a place now where I can put everybody's resources in one storefront. What's really cool is when you use the what we call affiliate links, and I'm now becoming an affiliate for a whole bunch of different things. It's all on my website at charliehornesscoaching.com, and it's on the bonus resources page. What happens is when you purchase something off of that, a portion of it goes back to the show. And so what you're doing basically when you buy from there is you're supporting the show at no additional cost to you, which is kind of like the coolest thing ever. It's going to help us continue to create content for you and bring on incredible guests that are, they blow my mind. So I'm hoping they will blow your mind too, whether it's metaphysics and psychology and theology or high fantasy romance. You're going to find your next favorite read right there. Let's go. I hear that step by step again. It's not about saying the right thing, doing the right thing, responding or reacting the right way, blah, blah, blah. You shifted your perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Was there a pivotal moment when you learned that?
I don't know if I could pinpoint like one thing. It was just a matter of like, I've never been like I know no one's normal, but I've never felt like exactly the same as people around me. I've always known I was just looked at things a little bit differently, perceived things a little bit differently, thought a little bit differently. And I felt bad about that for a long time. And then I think it was just a matter of realizing that it's a positive, it's a strength. And I am not going to apologize for who I am. And so you can accept it and you can live a happy life and enjoy that, or you can make yourself miserable. Again, happiness is an inside job. So do you want to be frustrated and angry and mad at the world around you and think that everyone's out to get you? And what is that going to do for you?
Coming from someone who worked in probably the most extreme male dominated field, when you think about the military, right? How do you know when you're being treated unfairly and you need to do something, say something, take action, or you need to kind of bide your time? Because you were in there and changing from the inside, especially for a woman in a male dominated field that is so like machismo male dominated. How did you be successful in that?
Well, for the most part in the maintenance world, I put my head down and I worked, and I gave people respect and I gave people autonomy and I trusted them, and believed in them. And, it's amazing all what happened when you do that. That was incredibly powerful to be able to do that. Once I got promoted again, I made master sergeants. They'd had some problems. I mean, like big problems, like would be on the news problems. But then they asked me to go and run this section. But now I have to go to this team that I don't know them and I'm outside their career field. And again, it's still maintenance. And I'm still a female in this maintenance world. I could have gone in there and said, I'm here to fix you because you're broken. But that would not have been effective. And I had learned enough at that point to realize that like you need to think about your approach. And if you're giving and they're not receiving, then you're not really giving. You're talking at them. And so if you want to affect a change, you got to figure out how to get through to people. So I went in there and I said, hey, I'm here to learn about your world and to learn about aircraft maintenance. And we established standards and accountability, and I was really tough on them. But again, respect and trust. And I told them, I don't know anything about aircraft maintenance, so you're going to have to show me. And oh my goodness, like they turned around. They turned around and they performed, and they were the most amazing crew of hardworking people that I've ever worked with. It's that it's that respect and the trust and the vulnerability. It matters. And people know when it's genuine, and you can't fake it. You have to lead from you, however you are. And if you're not being honest about it, nobody's going to follow you. I think that was when I started to figure out maybe I'm actually good at leading people. I mean, there's just such a potential to help people when you do those roles, and they're very challenging. They're tough, but there's, like I said, there's also the good. There was an airman that, he came to me because he was an alcoholic and he needed help, and we got him help, and he went on to recover and had a great career. And I think of him all the time, and he got promoted. So there are so many good things that came with that. But let me tell you, it had its challenges. And when I first actually went to First Sergeant Academy, and then I came back and I went to my first assignment as a first sergeant, and I kind of thought I had things figured out, but I didn't. And I had to really be open about this whole vulnerability thing, and when I started learning about people and their stories, it's just kind of really a changing experience. But it was hard for me too, because people are surprised to hear this, but I'm an introvert. I am an introvert. I need to recover. When I extrovert, I can do it. I just need to recover from all that peopling. That world, you have to be so much in touch with your people and so available all the time. It's kind of tiring. I didn't do a very good job of getting to know my squadron at first. And then they took a survey, and I got nailed on the survey, for being unapproachable. And when you're a first sergeant and your job is to help people, and they tell you that you're mean and angry if they're talking to you and you're unapproachable, I was like, oh man, I'm failing. I am failing at this. I have one of the worst RBFs that I know. I mean, it's bad.
I'm going to throw that picture up because we have in real life RBF. It is classic. First, I was going to say, I think you just gave us the most beautiful example when you were saying the gift of asking for help. You're giving that gift to somebody else.
I think about all these little moments that you have, and you have such an effect on someone's life, and you're just going through your life and you don't even realize it. And they may think of you years later with such gratitude for what you have given. And you don't even know.
You said in the beginning, they were interested in having women come into the mechanical field. I don't know if anybody knows that. It's an opportunity for women in the military. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I went to be an MTI, they were specifically looking for women to become MTIs because they were trying to match the demographic of the Air Force to where you had the same number of women MTIs as there were in the Air Force. And it's incredibly impactful. I still get messages to this day. I'll get a random LinkedIn or Facebook message. Hey, you were my MTI. And I learned about how to be a powerful woman. And you have a responsibility when you're in those positions to, if people are going to aspire to be you, then you need to be good enough to where you're proud that they're aspiring to be you. When I made chief, I was the first female maintenance chief that I'd ever met. I'd never met. That when I became one was the first time I saw another maintainer chief. I was proud of that. And I wanted people to see, you can do this.
Women are walking in with two deficits into any field, especially when there's an office being held or some sort of authority. There's this sort of gender bias gap. And there's this trust and believability factor as well. And these are both things men are granted automatically. Men have to lose trust, and women have to earn it from the get-go. And when we go back to the RBF, when we talk about this picture, how many males that are in the military would have that face and anybody would complain about their face? But you got called out for it. You got called mean.
Yeah.
You
Approachable.
unapproachable, but
Yeah, I did. No,
I
I got
can't
this.
change your face.
I got
But I also want you to talk about the other side of that, because your perspective on this, I think, is powerful. Number one, it's not fair. Men look like that all the time in the military, but you have another important thing women need to hear. So can you talk about this picture?
Yeah, I absolutely can. And this was from later in my life too. But at that moment that I got called out on this, I got slammed on the survey about being mean and unapproachable in my face. And I'm like, oh, this is just my face. This is what I look like when I am thinking like I have the worst expression. And so I had a responsibility to connect to people. I had a responsibility to be approachable. I did not want anyone to not be able to get help or get milk for their baby because I looked too scary to come talk to. And so I started smiling everywhere I went. And should I have to smile? No, I should not have to do that. But I wanted to connect to people. So it doesn't matter if it's fair. It doesn't matter. If you want to connect to people, you have to take responsibility to do the things that you need to do. And so I started smiling. And then, as I was at the end of my first sergeant tour, somebody said, "Oh, I know you. You're that first sergeant that's always smiling all the time." And I about died laughing. And I don't think he understood why, but it was going from the unapproachable, angry first sergeant to that first sergeant that's always smiling. As you can see, this particular picture was from when I was a command chief. So I still have the RBF, but I try to be aware of my RBF and at least be mindful of when I'm walking around in public spaces that maybe I think about what my face looks like a little bit.
So there's a level of emotional maturity here, emotional adulthood that I'm hearing from you, because in this bizarre space we're in right now, especially for women, working women, there's all this unfairness, like getting called out for your face. But at the same time, what I hear you saying is there are just some things we're just going to have to suck up if we want to get somewhere in the world, because these institutions, these opinions, some of this like sexist socialization has been here for how long?
Life is not going to mold itself around you based upon your wants and your needs and your desires. You have to take responsibility for what you can control. And those things are outside of your control. Maybe you'll get lucky and change people's perspectives as they get to know you. And they say, "Oh, wow, I really thought this, but now that I have met you and I get to know you, I see that I have the error of my ways." But more than likely, that's not going to happen. So unless you want to be angry at life, so what? What situation are you in? What can you control? What can you do? And be in control of your own life. Be in control of your own power, and don't let somebody take that away from you. This like victim mentality is not helpful, because there's immense strength with the flexibility, right? There's immense strength with, you can't make me feel anything that I don't want to feel. Nobody makes you feel what you decide. And nobody can take that away from you. And there's a lot of power in that. But don't give it away.
I think that one of the big lessons that I'm hearing you teach is that there's actually an empowerment in learning emotional adulthood and taking responsibility for our own feelings, understanding that our thoughts are generating our feelings. We are the ones that are giving that thought power, those words power. It's exactly the opposite, I think, of what people are going to think when they hear this. They're going to think, "Oh, you're telling women they should suck it up and suffer." And that, no, what we're saying is, as soon as you get it in your brain that stuff ain't changing, right? like you said, if somebody comes to this, aha moment of, oh, I'm terrible and let me change. Most people are doing what they're doing because they don't think they're wrong.
Yeah.
They're not changing. Why are they going to change for you because you say blah, blah, blah? And you're probably right if we're talking about justice. Yeah, it's not fair. But if we can equip women today to understand, if you take control of your own emotional life and you don't give that, and there's ways to do that. If you need to know how to do that, DM me, okay? Because I'll teach you. If you take this control, it empowers you. It does not diminish your power. It does not kick you to the curb and say, suck it up. It's you take up space.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. And if you think about it too, when somebody says something to you and you get hurt by it or you get offended by it, like why is that? Do you believe that they're saying truth to you? Do you believe it? Like, because I know when somebody says something to me and it's ridiculous, I'm just like, okay. But when they say something to me and I think there might be a kernel of truth in it, that's when I'm like, oh, okay, I'm reacting to this. Why am I reacting to this? And then you have to take stock and go, okay, what am I going to do with this? And that's when you have the choice too. It's like you can respond to the situation, in a million different ways, a million different outcomes. But the situation is still going to be the situation. But I think you have to just be honest with yourself too.
You have to make decisions. Well, what is the outcome? What are you trying to do? What is in your way? And how do you cut through all that noise to do the thing to be of service?
And I could have said, you know what? I don't need to deal with this. I don't have to smile at anybody. And if you don't want my help, then I'll have to give it to you. And I could have made that decision. But man, would I have been missing out on all.
And there's nothing wrong with that decision.
No.
But
I would have been missing out.
Exactly. I want to highlight, it's not a reprimand. It's not saying don't do that. Especially if you're in some sort of harm's way or you're in a super abusive, toxic, emotionally abusive, whatever environment, take care of yourself, right? That's a whole nother piece of emotional intelligence. What I'm hearing you say though, is to what end, the end is outweighing the BS of being a woman in the military, of having to put up with this unfairness.
Like I can smile so that I can do this. Like I can do that. Now, there are people that are in horrible situations and maybe that is the right decision, is just to get out of there. And I think that's where your benefit doesn't outweigh the cost, right? But don't let yourself get in the way because you want to be on a high horse.
Right. And I feel like there's so many women out there that are in difficult fields. If they were equipped to not walk in face first, like many of us have, if I'd known all that stuff, if I'd been equipped, if I'd had like the way you just talked to baby Casey, if I had someone kind of tell me who'd gone before me and said, you're going to feel this stuff. These people are going to do this stuff because all the stuff that we know that's going to happen. Oh, you got called out for your RBF. I don't want to tell you this stuff is not going to happen. I want to tell you it's going to happen and equip you how to deal with it and also not care about it and keep going. Eye on the prize, right? Feed the baby, the milk. At some point, we have got to become emotionally adult about being responsible for our feelings and how much power we give other people, because that's all it is, isn't it? I mean, every time you speak about this stuff, all I do is see you shift. You do the paradigm shift. You don't fix it. You don't change it. You don't reprimand people. You don't have the perfect comeback. You just do this beautiful glide. And it's amazing to watch. I hope people really pick up on this. Do you know that you're doing that? Because I think that can be taught if we know what's happening in our brains, in our minds. We are absolutely affirming that women are absolutely not treated fairly. And still, so what? Glide.
Yeah,
You know?
that's exactly what it is, though. It's the focus. What matters right now? What are you trying to do? Is that going to get in the way of you achieving what you're trying to achieve right now? And if it's not what matters, then it doesn't matter.
And you also identified another piece I think is very important, the physiological stuff happening in your body, which I think is extremely important if you're going to be successful at this kind of internal emotional intelligence work. You talked about when you're in the moment, you taught yourself to pause and identify the reaction you're having.
Yeah. So it is okay, I'm feeling something here. So going along, having my day, something happens, and I'm just like, okay, what just happened? Why am I instantly angry or instantly frustrated or whatever? Or just, why do I feel attacked or whatever it is? It's like, stop. Okay, that's a moment to stop. What is happening? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I reacting this way? What can I do to stop feeling terrible? You know?
And so what do you have some examples of what you personally do, that sort of embodiment? To think that the gliding and all that, but to think that you glided through your career with no problems. There's no way that's true. Again, why you're a guest here, because you're modeling success in a story that often would probably lead to failure for women that weren't able to become equipped. You have to start feeling it in your body first thing. That's the first thing, because you feel the physiology. You can't ignore that.
Yeah. And you have to pay attention to it too. And don't get me wrong. There's been plenty of times to where I snapped back and I felt it and I knew I should pause, stop, take a deep breath, get curious. That's the best way to diffuse, honestly, is like stop, breath, get curious. Many situations to where there's aggression and conflict is honestly misunderstanding. Like most often. It's easier to say than to do. Sometimes I have had horrible failures at this. It's being in tune and realizing that those flags are going up and then not being, held to reacting and losing your ability to pause and to slide. Like, because if you lose it, you can't find your focus and let it go and let that slide happen. You've just had your power taken away from you because you've let it go. Sometimes you'll find that you really did just misunderstand the situation. So you're going to make a mess out of things sometimes, and that's okay. But how do you fix your messes? And that's what really matters, because again, you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to get it right all the time. So just accept that you're not going to get it right all the time and try to be better at fixing your mistakes. And I think you're on a good path as a human.
The goal is not to avoid. The goal is not to excuse. The goal is not to make light of things. The goal is to help people be successful in what it is that they dream of doing. I just want to highlight the word curiosity. This is so important, I think, right now in what's happening. We're in regardless of how we fall on any belief system, we're in a very divisive time. Let's not live in the place of stress that makes you sick. So how do we do that? And the word curiosity in the moment, I think, is one of the most powerful key tools. One of the first things we can do once we identify the feeling is become curious. We ask, why? What is behind? If it's a difference of opinion, we ask, how did you learn that? Who taught you that? Why do you believe that? And that changes everything.
I've been retired about a year now. And it's funny that, I have gone from these roles in the Air Force that it really has been just the same lessons about being human. So that you treat people with respect. You believe in them. You trust them. You let them see who you are. You don't let other people control your happiness. And that's the way to have a life that you can feel good about. And so you don't walk around angry all the time. I don't want to believe the worst out of people. I want to believe that people generally are good people and they want to do good things. It's just how you choose to live your life.
Chief Boom, do you have any last words for anyone coming behind you?
We exist on this planet for a very small amount of time. And what we need to do with that time is to take care of each other and to support each other. And I think that the whole world would be a better place if we were less focused on how scary and how frightening and how there's so much bad in the world, and more focused on, what good is in humanity and how we can help our fellow human. So that would be my parting thoughts, is just go be good people.
Well, we are honored to have you. Chief Boom has given me some links, some writing she's done, and also an incredible list of book recommendations. I will have a curated list of all of her recommendations. And again, that's on my Amazon storefront. If you want to get the book, get it from there. You get a portion back to the show, and you're supporting the show without any additional cost to you. So I'll have that link in the show notes. Well, I'm just so honored that you were here.
Anytime. I had a great time. Thank you for having me.
Me too. All right. See you later.
Bye.